I once had an argument with a friend. I remember it vividly. They promised to show up, but never did. When I texted to ask, they replied, "I never promised anything. You must be misremembering." I was stunned. I started scrolling back through our messages, checking call logs, and even wondered, is it possible that I really remembered it wrong? And then I was the one who apologized. I apologized for overthinking. Have you ever found yourself in a situation like that? You know you were right, you feel hurt, but in the end, you were the one questioning yourself. Am I being too sensitive? Am I making a big deal out of nothing? And so you fall silent. You swallow your emotions. You think that perhaps you were the one at fault. That is not sensitivity. That is gaslighting, and it is happening every day in your relationships, in your workplace, and within your family without you even realizing it. Gaslighting is not an ordinary argument. It's not a simple disagreement. It is a sophisticated psychological tactic designed to make you doubt your own memory, your emotions, and even your reality. People do not need to scream. They do not need to use physical force. They only need to say one simple sentence. You are just overthinking it. I have a friend who told me that every time she felt sad, her partner would say, "You're being dramatic again. You know, you think way too negatively." The first time she heard it, she thought maybe he was right. The second time, she began to question herself. By the third time, she no longer dared to express her feelings. She was afraid of truly being a dramatic person. She feared she was being a burden, and so she lived in silence, doubting her own emotions every single day. That is exactly what gaslighting is. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens gradually, bit by bit, until you completely lose faith in yourself. Nietzsche once said that true power does not lie in force, it lies in the ability to control the perceptions of others. When you make someone doubt their own reality, you no longer need to strike them. They will begin to strike themselves.
There are several typical signs. A gaslighter often denies the truth. "I never said that. You remember it wrong." They shift the blame. "Why would you think that about me? I am not that cruel." They make you feel as though you were being too sensitive. "It was just a joke. Why are you taking it so seriously?" And slowly, you begin to believe that the problem does not lie with them. The problem lies with you. But why is gaslighting so effective? Why do humans fall into this trap so easily? There is a phenomenon in psychology called the illusory truth effect. Simply put, the human brain tends to believe things that are repeated many times, regardless of whether they are true or false. If someone keeps telling you that you are overthinking, you are too sensitive, or you are being dramatic, you might push back the first time, but by the 10th or 20th time, your brain begins to accept it as a fact. I once read a story about a child. Every time the child felt sad, the parents would say, "You are not sad, you are just tired. Go to bed." The first time, the child cried, but the second time, the child began to doubt. By the third time, the child no longer dared to cry. Growing up, that child did not know what they were feeling. They did not trust their own emotions because since childhood, they were taught that their feelings were wrong. That is the terrifying power of gaslighting. It does not just manipulate you once, it reshapes the way you perceive yourself. There's a concept in psychology called cognitive dissonance. When reality and words contradict each other, the human brain feels uncomfortable. To reduce that discomfort, the brain seeks a way to harmonize the two pieces of information. Often, we choose to believe the person who holds more power, a higher status, or someone we love. A child will believe their parents over their own feelings. An employee will believe their boss over their own judgment. A partner will believe their lover over their own intuition. And that is precisely why gaslighting is so dangerous. Because the person doing this to you is not necessarily an evil villain. Sometimes it's your parents. Sometimes it's your partner. Sometimes it's your boss, your best friend, or the person you trust the most.
They may not have malicious intent, however, their behavior still causes harm, and you still gradually lose faith in yourself.
So, how can you recognize if you are being gaslit? If you are always the one apologizing in every argument, even when you do not understand what you did wrong, that is a sign. If you start to doubt your memory, wondering, did I really remember that correctly every time someone denies what they said, that is a sign. If you frequently feel that you are too sensitive, ungrateful, or thinking negatively, that is also a sign. If you are afraid to speak your true feelings because you know in advance you will be dismissed, mocked, or told you are overthinking, that is the clearest sign of all. Carl Jung once said that every human being has a shadow, the part of ourselves we dare not look at directly. These are the rejected emotions, the suppressed pain, and the truths we fear to face. Gaslighting exploits this very point. It does not just attack your thoughts, it attacks your shadow, your deepest fears, the fear of not being good enough, the fear that you really are the one with the problem. I have a friend who works at a company. Every time he offered an opinion, his boss would say, "You think so? But are you sure? You just joined the company after all." The first time, he thought maybe he lacked experience. The second time, he started to lose confidence. By the third time, he no longer dared to say anything. He sat in meetings in silence, even though his head was full of ideas. Because he was afraid. He was afraid he truly was not good enough. He was afraid he would be laughed at.
So why do people gaslight you? This question is important not so that you can learn to be more empathetic, but so that you can stop pointing the knife at yourself. Many people who are being gaslit do not ask, why are they doing this, but instead keep repeating a single question in their heads. Is it me? For some, gaslighting does not start from malice, it starts from weakness. Inside them is a very fragile ego, built upon the necessity of always being right, always being logical, and always being the blameless one in any story. When you point out a contradiction, a mistake, or even simply express a feeling that does not align with them, they do not hear the content of your words. What they perceive is a threat. And when the ego feels threatened, humans rarely react with thought. They react with defense. Instead of pausing to ask, did I just hurt someone? They choose the easier path. They flip the narrative. They shift the focus. They make the issue no longer about their behavior, but about your reaction. From a place where you were speaking about what caused you pain, you suddenly become the one who is sensitive, unreasonable, or overthinking. It is not because you are wrong, but because if you were right, they would have to face a truth that they are not yet strong enough to look at directly. However, if gaslighting only stemmed from personal pain, it would not be this prevalent. There are people who do it with full awareness, not in a fit of emotional panic, but with cold calculation. To them, gaslighting is not a reflex, it is a tool. They understand that power in a relationship does not come from who speaks louder, but who gets to define what is real. When you begin to doubt your own perceptions, you automatically surrender the power of decision to someone else, and that is a very clean form of power. No need for coercion, no need for threats, just sow enough doubt, and you will do the rest yourself. The spirit that Machiavelli once spoke of lies here. Power is rarely given voluntarily. It is usually seized in the moments when others are no longer certain enough to hold on to it. A person who is clear about their emotions and their boundaries is very difficult to control. But a person who is constantly asking, is it my fault, or am I thinking too much, is incredibly easy to lead. For these people, weakening you is not an unintended consequence, it is the goal. They do not need you to collapse completely. They only need you to slow down for a beat, to hesitate a little more, and to lose your inherent certainty. That alone is enough to tip the scales of power in their favor.
So ultimately, how do you fight back against gaslighting? In reality, facing gaslighting is not about learning what to say cleverly, but about learning how to stand firm in your own experience after a long period of being shaken. The first thing, which is also the foundation of everything that follows, is that you must start believing in your own emotions, not in an extreme way, but by acknowledging that emotions are real data. If you feel sad, then that sadness has occurred. If you feel angry, then that anger is not an imagination. If you feel hurt, then your body and mind have recorded an impact of some kind. No one has the right to step inside you and declare that you are not sad or you are just overthinking. Those statements may sound rational, but they are actually a way of denying your existence at that moment. Emotions do not need to be debated to exist. They do not need logic to be valid. They only need to be acknowledged as real. Once you have begun to believe in your emotions again, the next step is to create a foothold for yourself when your memory begins to falter. Gaslighting works effectively because it makes you doubt your own memory. The human brain can be led and distorted, especially when emotional pressure arises, but the written word does not change. When someone promises you something, write it down. When someone says something that hurts you, record it as neutrally as possible. This is not for future confrontation, let alone for winning or losing. It is so that in the moments you begin to wonder, maybe I remembered it wrong, you can go back and see clearly that no, it happened and I did not make it up. That act alone is enough for you to preserve a piece of reality for yourself. Once you have reclaimed your emotions and the facts, you will need something that many people find difficult: boundaries. Sometimes it is just a very calm sentence, "I do not accept the way you are speaking to me," or "You have the right to think your way, and I have the right to know what I saw." Many people fear setting boundaries because they mistake it for rudeness or selfishness, but in truth, a boundary is the most basic form of self-respect. If you do not define the areas that cannot be violated, others will unconsciously or intentionally step into them. Another very important point, which is often overlooked, is to stop making excuses for the person who is hurting you. If someone makes you bleed, whether accidentally or intentionally, you are still bleeding, and you have the right to step back, the right to leave, and the right to protect yourself without having to prove that you are hurting enough or right enough. Finally, during periods when you feel completely lost, allow yourself to seek an outside perspective. A trusted friend, a relative who takes no sides, or a psychological expert. When you have been gaslit for a long time, your internal reference system becomes scrambled. You are no longer sure what is real and what you have been led to believe. Someone without a stake in that relationship can help you see everything much more clearly. Schopenhauer once viewed life as a constant collision of wills. In that collision, the strongest person is not the one with the louder voice, but the one who maintains a clear sense of self. When you know what you are feeling, when you trust your experience, and when you no longer let others define reality for you, gaslighting loses the ground it needs to survive. It is not because you become harder, but because you become more awake. But if we stop at the individual level, we still haven't seen the whole picture. Because gaslighting is not just created by a few individuals, it is nurtured by the way this society teaches us to view ourselves. From very early on, we are taught to be good, to be obedient, and to not think too much. We are taught that adults are always right, that talking back is rude, and that strong emotions are a sign of weakness. When a child is sad, they are told not to overreact. When they are angry, they are told they are being naughty, and gradually they learn a very dangerous lesson. Their emotions are not trustworthy. Growing up in such an environment, people become accustomed to doubting themselves. When someone denies their feelings, it is no longer foreign. It simply reactivates an old pattern. And because of that, gaslighting does not need to be very sophisticated. It only needs to repeat the exact same sentences we have heard since we were small. This society does not teach us how to believe in our emotions. It teaches us how to endure. It teaches us to stay silent to keep the peace. It teaches us that harmony is more important than inner truth. And in such a society, gaslighting is not the exception. It becomes the norm. But your emotions are not the enemy. They do not exist to ruin your life. They exist to signal that something is happening inside you that needs attention. When you learn to listen to them, you do not become weaker. You become clearer.
Gaslighting is not about you being weak. People who gaslight others do not do so because they are strong. And here is the final reality check I want to send to you. If you constantly have to ask yourself, am I going crazy? The answer is no. People who are truly losing their minds never ask themselves if they're going crazy. You are stronger than you think. The fact that you are watching this video, the fact that you are searching for answers, that is already the first step toward liberation. Realizing is the first step. Believing in that realization is the second step, and acting upon that realization is the third step. Gloria Steinem has a great quote, "The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off." And that is a good thing. That anger is a sign that you are waking up. You are reclaiming control of your own reality. If this video touched you, please leave a comment. Sometimes writing it down is the very first step toward getting out. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, please share the video. Sometimes we see more clearly for others than we do for ourselves. They can make you doubt. They can make you wonder, but they cannot keep you silent forever. Because deep down inside, you always know the truth. And that truth is waiting for you to bravely embrace it. Thank you for watching until the end of the video. If you found this valuable, do not forget to like and subscribe to support the channel. And remember, your reality belongs to you. Do not let anyone take it away.